After another nerve-wracking game, Newcastle United have crawled past Bournemouth in the FA Cup. So from the clutch Barnes to the penalty-saving Ramsdale, can the Wissa-Voltemade partnership work? Plus, is Newcastle set to sign a new centre-back? We'll reveal the player about to potentially leave, as well as discussing a behind-the-scenes trend that is massively impacting the Newcastle Academy. As per, join us as we'll break down the latest Newcastle United transfer news and discuss the 5 things we learned from Newcastle United 3 Bournemouth 3.
Let's go!
So the first thing we learned was the Tonali breather. Tonali started slowly with a few cheap giveaways but grew into the game, especially in the second half, and it was his burst into the box that led to the penalty. He finished with an 8.7 rating and wasn't afraid to have shots from distance, which sets him apart from everyone else in this midfield. He completed 87 of his 96 passes at 91% accuracy, the highest accuracy and most passes of any player on the pitch, with 46 of those passes coming in the opposition, half at 85% accuracy, and 41 of 42 in his own half at 98%. He attempted 5 long balls, completed 2, had 3 shots, won a penalty, scored in the shootout, and ended the game with 125 touches, again the most of any player. Defensively, he was just as involved, contributing 9 defensive actions, winning 2 of his 3 tackles, making 1 interception, 4 clearances, 1 block, 8 recoveries, and contesting 17 ground duels, winning 7 of them. A complete performance once he settled. However, we can't say the same for the others in midfield. Ramsey, as has been the pattern this season, started brightly and offered hope that we would finally see a return on the investment, but faded badly as the game wore on. He ended with a 7.0 rating, completing 50 of 53 passes at 94% accuracy, with 33 of 34 coming in the opposition half, but produced no key passes and no crosses despite having 65 touches and completing both of his dribble attempts. Much like Willock, he needs a goal badly to restore confidence. Willock, meanwhile, was really pulling for a big performance today, especially after the abhorrent racial abuse he received, but unfortunately it was yet another poor outing. He finished with a 5.9 rating and managed just 34 touches all game, half of Ramsey's total and nowhere near Tonali, who had close to 4 times that. He looks like a player completely devoid of confidence, hesitant in possession and offering very little influence on the game, and desperately needs a goal to kickstart not just his season but possibly his Newcastle career. It's deeply concerning that our backup midfield options are simply not performing, which moves us to the super subs, starting with Guimarães. Bruno came on and immediately won possession, instigated attacks and very nearly grabbed an assist for Joelinton, who headed over the bar. He ended with a 7.1 rating, completing 39 of 45 passes at 87% accuracy, creating 1 big chance and making 2 key passes, but unfortunately missed his penalty in the shootout, which docks him slightly. Defensively, he still put in a shift, winning 2 of 3 tackles, making an interception, 6 recoveries and winning 7 of his 8 ground duels. Joelinton, also with a 7.1 rating, made a big impact off the bench, with his physicality proving too much for a tiring Bournemouth midfield. He has shown a noticeable improvement in possession lately, completing 26 of 29 passes, and was unlucky not to score after heading over the bar in extra time. He missed 1 big chance but did convert his penalty in the shootout, and ended his cameo having won 3 of 7 ground duels and all of his aerial battles. Gordon was the standout off the bench and deserved his 9.0 rating. He was a spark plug from the moment he came on, with his direct running causing Smith all sorts of problems. He played the through ball that led to the penalty and then stepped up to dispatch it himself, before delivering a tremendous cross in extra time for Barnes' second goal. He finished with a goal and an assist, 5 shots with 3 on target, created a big chance, completed 3 of 4 dribbles and calmly converted his penalty in the shootout. That now takes Anthony Gordon to 50 goal contributions for Newcastle, with 30 goals and 20 assists. But what is concerning is that this season 8 of his goals have come, with 6 of them being penalties. The Lewis fullbacks also shined, starting with Hall. With a 7.4 rating, he was once again a class act in possession, bringing balance and progression to the left side. While there are still holes defensively to work on, his contribution going forward can't be ignored, creating 2 big chances, delivering 3 accurate crosses from 5 attempts, and completing 83% of his passes. Defensively, he still competed well, winning 6 of 10 ground duels and making 7 recoveries, even if he was dribbled past twice and made 1 error leading to a shot. Miley also shined, especially in contrast to Trippier's rough reintroduction to action. Trippier finished with a 6.1 rating, falling asleep at the wheel for Scott's goal and being completely outpaced for the second, offering little going forward and looking either rusty or his age finally catching up with him. Lewis Miley, on the other hand, came on with a 7.3 rating and once again looked like Mr. Reliable at just 19 years old. He slotted in seamlessly at right back, completing 27 of 33 passes, winning his defensive duels, scoring his penalty in the shootout, and providing a calm, composed cameo that suggests this could be his spot for the foreseeable, especially with Tyno going off injured. Despite the substitutes elevating the game, we still have to talk about the Nick-Wissa combination, as both strikers started the match, and their contrast told its own story. Voltemade was deployed in the number 10 role that many have been clamoring for, and looked far more comfortable there. His quality between the lines stood out, with a sublime through ball setting up Barnes for the equalizer, and a clever dummy late on allowing Tonali to burst through and win the penalty. He finished with a 6.4 rating, registering an assist, creating 2 big chances and playing 3 key passes, while completing 34 of his 40 passes at 85% accuracy, most of them in the opposition half. However, once Wissa was withdrawn and Voltemade moved back into the centre-forward role, his influence noticeably dropped, and he became far less involved in the flow of the game. To compound a mixed night, he smashed his penalty against the bar in the shootout, summing up a performance that promised more than it ultimately delivered. On the other hand, Wissa endured a frustrating evening and missed what felt like a golden opportunity to cement his place ahead of Voltemade in the preferred setup. He spurned chances that you would expect a striker of his pedigree to finish, and had little to no impact in general play. In his 69 minutes on the pitch, he managed just 2 shots, both on target, missed a big chance, was caught offside twice, and had only 15 touches in total. His passing was also ineffective, completing just 3 of 7 passes, all of them in the opposition half, which underlined how disconnected he was from the rest of the attack. It felt like a performance that asked more questions than it answered. Despite this, in the starting lineup, Barnes was the standout and simply shone. It was a perfect 10 out of 10 performance, reflected in his 10 rating, and long may this purple patch continue. Another 2 goals capped off an outstanding week for Harvey, who is rapidly becoming Newcastle's most potent attacking threat. He was a constant problem for the defense, combining direct running with end product, and could easily have had an assist as well after delivering a brilliant cross for Gordon. Barnes looks to have the right wing spot firmly sewn up at the moment, finishing the match with 2 goals, 4 key passes, 8 crosses, 3 shots, 2 on target, and a calmly taken penalty in the shootout. With 66 touches and an all-action display in the final third, he was the difference maker on the night, and a reminder of just how devastating he can be when confidence is flowing. But if Barnes dragged us back into the game, Ramsdale ultimately won it for us with his heroics in the shootout. Despite that, it was not a flawless display, and he will be disappointed with his overall performance, particularly the manner of the 3rd goal, which he made a real mess of. Throughout the game, he looked shaky at times and, on balance, probably hasn't done enough yet to fully dislodge Pope as the number 1. Still, when it mattered most, he stood tall. Ramsdale finished the night with a massive 9.6 rating, saving 3 penalties in the shootout to seal the win. Over the course of the match, he made 10 saves in total, 6 of them from inside the box, repeatedly bailing Newcastle out under heavy pressure. He was also proactive off his line, successfully coming out twice, made 1 punch and claimed 2 high balls. In possession, he completed 31 of his 42 passes for a 74% accuracy. Shaky at times, yes, but decisive when it mattered most. And without his intervention from 12 yards, Newcastle simply don't win this game. Then, in some transfer news, Newcastle United have once again been linked with a potential move for Atalanta defender Giorgio Scalvini, as Eddie Howe continues to navigate a growing defensive crisis at St James's Park. The Italian centre-back was strongly linked with the Magpies during the summer transfer window, but Newcastle ultimately turned their attention elsewhere, completing a deal for AC Milan defender Malick Thiaw instead. Thiaw had been closely monitored by the club for more than a year before arriving on Tyneside in August, and his impact in the Premier League has since justified that long-term pursuit. Now firmly established as a key figure in Howe's side, Thiaw's importance has only increased amid a fresh wave of defensive setbacks. Newcastle appeared to be emerging from their injury troubles when Sven Botman returned to the matchday squad last week, but that optimism was short-lived. Fabian Schär suffered what looked to be a serious ankle injury during the midweek win over Leeds United, once again leaving Howe with only two senior centre-backs at his disposal. Matters were compounded further when Tyno was forced off during Saturday's victory over Bournemouth. Speaking after that match, Howe openly acknowledged the strain the fixture schedule is placing on his depleted squad and hinted at the need for reinforcements. "We need enough players to play the games," Howe admitted. "Unfortunately, against Bournemouth, we put a couple of players at risk just with extra time. That's every player on the pitch. The more you play, the higher the injury risk becomes. We'd love to have enough bodies to reduce that risk, but at the moment we don't have the options. We'll have intense and detailed discussions to make sure we make the right decisions." One of the names now resurfacing as a possible solution is Scalvini. According to Team Talk, the 22-year-old remains firmly on Newcastle's radar, with the club viewing him as a defender capable of enjoying a long and successful career at the top level. Already capped 8 times by Italy, Scalvini has made over 100 senior appearances for Atalanta, including 96 in Serie A. However, the defender's recent injury record presents a clear concern. Scalvini managed just 7 league appearances last season after suffering a cruciate ligament injury, before a shoulder problem prematurely ended his campaign in January. This season, a series of muscle injuries have again limited his involvement, restricting him to a supporting role for much of the campaign. Encouragingly for both club and country, Scalvini has started Atalanta's last 3 matches, all of which ended in clean sheet victories, suggesting he may finally be regaining full fitness. Even so, Newcastle are likely to face strong resistance should they decide to formalize their interest. Atalanta are understood to be extremely reluctant to lose such a prized asset midway through the season, meaning any January move would be far from straightforward. Still, Eddie Howe continues to weigh up his defensive options as Newcastle United explore multiple routes to strengthening the backline, with Bournemouth's Marco Senesi and Lecce breakout star Thiago Gabriel both firmly under consideration. According to Sportsboom, Newcastle have been offered the chance to move for Senesi, whose contract at Bournemouth expires this summer. The Argentine centre-back is viewed as an experienced, Premier League-proven option who could be acquired without a major long-term financial commitment. With that in mind, sources suggest Howe is carefully assessing whether the club truly needs to invest heavily this month, or whether the current squad can be managed through the ongoing injury crisis with selective additions rather than a blockbuster signing. That measured approach, however, has not stopped Newcastle from monitoring younger, high-upside profiles, and one name now generating serious interest is Lecce defender Thiago Gabriel. According to transfer expert Rudy Galletti, Newcastle have stepped up their interest in the 21-year-old Portuguese centre-back and are actively tracking his development with a potential winter move in mind. Galletti reports that the Magpies appreciate Gabriel's profile and see him as a strong fit for their long-term defensive strategy. Standing at an imposing 6'5", Gabriel has emerged as one of Serie A's most eye-catching young defenders this season. His physical dominance is already elite. He ranks in the 98th percentile for aerial duels won across Europe's top 5 leagues and sits in the 91st percentile for challenges won, highlighting his effectiveness both in the air and on the ground. Newcastle are not alone in their admiration. Tottenham Hotspur are also pushing hard, while Crystal Palace and Everton have made initial inquiries. In Italy, Juventus and Inter Milan have been tracking Gabriel for months, with Juventus even exploring the possibility of player exchange deals to reduce the cash outlay. Lecce, for their part, would prefer to keep the defender until the end of the season, but reports suggest negotiations would begin at a figure between 30 million and 40 million euros. The club's reputation for selling at peak value, as seen in previous high-profile departures, suggests their resolve could soften if an irresistible offer arrives. From Newcastle's perspective, Gabriel represents a long-term defensive pillar rather than a short-term fix. With Sven Botman viewed as the cornerstone of the back line, Gabriel is seen as a potential partner who could eventually succeed senior figures such as Fabian Schär or Dan Burn, while also lowering the squad's average age. Statistically, Gabriel already stacks up impressively among Europe's elite young defenders. Among under-21 centre-backs in the top 5 leagues, he ranks inside the top group for defensive duel success, reinforcing the idea that his rise is built on substance rather than hype. There are still areas for improvement. His progressive passing and recovery speed can be refined, but Newcastle's recruitment team see those as coachable traits rather than red flags. In a low-possession Lecce side, Gabriel has prioritized security over risk, yet remains accurate on both feet and a genuine threat from set pieces at the other end. Ultimately, Newcastle face a strategic decision. Senesi offers immediacy and Premier League reliability, while Gabriel represents a statement of intent toward the future. Whether Howe opts for experience, upside, or a combination of both may define how Newcastle navigate not just this window, but the next phase of their defensive rebuild. Then, in another worrying development, Newcastle United have confirmed that the under-21 head coach is no longer in post. While first-team matters dominate headlines, this is a problem that runs far deeper, and it is one the club can no longer afford to ignore. Since the takeover, Newcastle's under-21 side has now had 6 different head coaches. That level of churn is alarming for any academy, and it goes a long way toward explaining why progress at youth level has stalled despite increased recruitment and investment. Young players need continuity. Tactical identity, coaching philosophy, and clear development pathways are built over time, not reset every few months. Instead, Newcastle's most important transition squad has existed in a near-constant state of reboot, making it extremely difficult for players to develop consistency, confidence, or a clear understanding of what the club expects from them. The under-21 is supposed to be the bridge between academy football and the senior squad. Right now, that bridge looks unstable. Each new coach arrives with different ideas, systems, and priorities, meaning players are constantly adapting rather than improving. It also undermines long-term planning, with promising talents too often stagnating or falling through the cracks. This is particularly frustrating given the strides Newcastle have made in youth recruitment. The raw materials are there. The problem isn't talent, it's structure. Without stability and leadership, even the best prospects struggle to translate potential into first-team readiness. If Newcastle are serious about becoming a sustainable elite club, this is an area that requires urgent attention. First-team success cannot be the only pillar of the project. A coherent, stable academy, especially at under-21 level, is essential to producing depth, value, and identity. Fixing this won't grab headlines like a marquee signing, but in the long run, it may matter just as much. Then, in a massive development, Then, if you want to know how one unforgettable cross horrifyingly destroyed Newcastle legend Ginola's career for the worst, click the link on screen now.